All right. I was debating whether I wanted to make this video or not. For those of you who've seen my previous videos, with me uploading this video, I'm going to try to make it as short as I possibly can. But with me uploading this one, this should be enough to show you that someone was able to help me out with my current situation. Um, Before I get into the main top on some of the main topics I wanted to talk about in this video, I'll need to point a few things out. One of the major causes of what the issues of what I'm dealing with, and I believe this may be the same situation dealing with a lot of people. Basically, I'm trying to get my responsibilities taken care of on my own, but these perpetrators, these third parties, these private contractors, are screwing around with these things as I'm trying to get stuff done on my own. At the same time, I've already talked about how they had a perp basically try to reference my family, and then it's like it's luring me, they're trying to lure me into going to seek help from my family as a result. um Problematic situation with that is there was a lot of sketchy problems that happened along the way, and the whole overall thing that they're basically trying to project is, okay, this guy clearly can't take care of himself, and so his family has to step in to take care of him for him. That's the present, the preference that they're trying to put out there, but that's simply not true. I can easily get stuff done, but it's not as easy when you got people basically fucking with, intentionally screwing around with things. It's not easy at all. So, dealing with my family, there have been other questionable things that happened a while ago when I was asked, and that has something to do with life insurance. I was asked to actually get life insurance from the same family members, by the way. I told them no, so I didn't consent to it. But there were also a number of other situations that I counted on until it got to a point to where I started recording these incidences. So I actually was able to get video and audio of some of the scripted behavior that some of them were doing. Sorry about that. Looks like someone wants attention. What's the matter, buddy? Hmm? All right. Anyway, I am still currently in a pretty bad predicament situation. I'm not even. I'm gonna try to really get this figured out as best I can, but I don't know how this is really gonna turn out. All I can do is do the best that I can. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, and it's the reason why I've even mentioned that, is because I noticed that a lot of these target individuals who've either lost their lives or who have ended up in these catastrophes. Of course, we know that these private contractors basically cause these events to occur because they're the ones who put people, up to it, whether it be through greed or through force, or threats. The whole situation is very complicated. Some people are basically forced into targeting people, and some of them are basically just bribed or just paid off to do it. The situation, and as well as the people, vary from person to person, as well as the situation as well. Now, with that out of the way, I have figured out a few methods of detoxing, and I've been able to at least find some ways around. But it seems like whenever I try to find something that's good, they'll always try to find a way to get around it. And I've realized just how desperate they are to, if you shield, they're going to be desperate to get through that. If you detox, they're going to be desperate to basically undo that, and it's just ridiculous. So the anti V2K headset that I've made a while back, unfortunately, that is not as effective as I hoped. However, because of me making that, I found out what actually is more capable. I put magnets on the back side of my ear as well as on the front, the outer side, and I had some metal screws, some very small metal screws attached to them. I had them on the back side of the ear so they wouldn't show. But I had that on it. I had strong magnets too. They were small, but they were very strong. And for a little while, I couldn't hear anything, you know, and it actually, created a lot of disruption. I understand that they do use a lot of frequencies to try to vibrate the ears in order to basically, they use this either with ultrasound or any other type of technology that has the capabilities of doing this to basically, generate certain certain thoughts, to trigger certain thoughts, or even just to trigger certain words into the ear canal for you to hear it. Problem is, only you're the one who's going to be able to hear it because they're the ones who are basically projecting it to you individually. Um, I had talked a few things about religion over time, and I just, I had a lot of questions about it. I have this one saying. The thing is, I do believe in God, but the thing is, I do not. I can't put my trust in a book that's being manufactured from a factory that's being made by man. And there's a good reason as to why I said that. How many things have we seen that are made by man that has been configured, constructed, altered in a way to where it's basically just sided with this satanic agenda? And the thing is, I've seen it time and time again. So I thought about it. And you know something? I had watched a comedian talk about this. His name was Eddie Griffith, and he talked about like a lot of the stuff, right from wrong, is technically written in your essence when God creates you, right? And I figured that made a lot of sense. I figured that God, you know, God would technically realize that, you know, since one of the main things you would see when when you look through a lot of the scriptures on any of this stuff, or just read anything about God or Satan or Lucifer, whatever they want to call him, um, you know everything that deals with God's creations is made for a specific purpose. When it comes to the devil or even Lucifer, that being likes to imitate, being something that it's not, imitating something that it's not, and doesn't even have the capabilities to be. It's a trickster and a manipulator at the same time. Now, one of the things I've noticed, and I still see it even now, people say we're in the end times, right? And here's the thing, a lot of stuff that was predated from some Freemasons of what they talked about way before the year 2000. We're going way before that, right? They've mentioned things that were going to occur several years later. This is going as far as 2005, even before 2005, 2010, 2020. A lot of these things that were going to go down, right? It was predictive programming. A Bible, that book within itself, from what I've noticed, in a way, it's kind of the same thing. Yes, there is warning about the end times and all that, but the thing is, something just isn't adding up. They say Jesus died for our sins, right? So, I mean, don't get me wrong, the very act to commit a sin is still there, right? It is. But the thing is, why would these Satanists, why would any of these individuals at all, or even if they're being used too, they probably are for all I know, but any of these individuals who are basically so desperate for control, so desperate to develop AI, why would they be so desperate? And here's the thing, they have control over the freaking the mint, so they can print money is not an issue at all. It's not. So they can print out as much money as they possibly want. Money's no problem. So what I can't figure out is, why is it that they're so desperate for control? Why is it that they're so desperate when they implement this technology that they constantly go after your mind? Because that's exactly what this is doing. They do stuff to try to provoke you. They implement, they try to basically send falsified, synthetic based, thoughts that are not your own. They'll even use your own voice and try to use that against you to make you think that that's your voice. In reality, it's not. So the thing is that what's the end goal here for why they want this much control? What really is this leading all about? There's been talks about a lot of things. Some people talked about aliens, some people talked about reptilians, all kinds of stuff. By the way, this is only just an open mind type of thing, okay? I'm not telling anybody to really question their own religion. I'm just basically trying to keep an open mind about this to really try to figure out. Because the one thing that's the most reckless thing that even this includes myself too, that anybody could do is basically fall into a trap that has been basically preset for quite a long time. The thing is, man can create things, but they will never have the actual, you know, ability to. Well, actually, no, I take that back. The ability to create new life in this world, we kind of do have the ability to do that. I mean, well, I guess you could say like a way to manipulate it in a way, but a man can't create new life as far as a human is concerned unless they have some, as far as anything, as far as a woman is concerned. You got to have a female and a guy in order to basically make a baby, right? If you wish to grow plants, you got to have the seeds and you got to have the right type of soil and the right type of terrain, and as well as, planting these things in the right type of season. I want to, if I haven't given out the warning before, I want to give out a warning now. Anybody who is a truther, anybody who basically sees the deception, avoid the whole thing dealing with QAnon as much as you can, because that's a massive deception tactic that the enemy is using. And from my understanding, what they're trying to do basically is, when it comes to a lot of this human trafficking and a lot of this illegal activity that basically, goes undetected by the most of the masses, and they don't see it unless you actually film it and point it out. Because the thing is, if you're being targeted and you're being stalked and harassed, they're not gonna basically sit there and act like an idiot, starting to shout out, "Hey, he's over here. Hey, he's over there." They're not going to be that dumb, because that gives them away. As far as the whole thing is concerned, a lot of us know this is basically organized crime. They're gonna try to do as little as possible by basically trying to make you look as crazy as possible. That's the whole idea of everything that they do. They want to pin you off as that, so that basically nobody basically takes what you're saying in consideration, and they basically just dismiss everything you have to say under the pretense, under the very thought of you being mentally ill. So they get people, even people you don't even know and people you do know, to back this claim up by triggering things. They will do stuff as long as they're not being filmed. And as this is going on, let's say like, okay, they do something. Now you pull out your video camera, they stop doing it. You question them about it. Oh, you're mentally ill. They pretend quite a lot. Um, I've been able to see through stuff like that and not fall into the trap for what they have been doing. And that's another warning I wanted to give out for people. Do not allow their stunts to cause you to react in such a way. Be aware of a lot of this stuff. The only time I would say to basically confront them is if you have the know-how to at least explain the situation in a way to where they cannot discredit you. For instance, dealing with certain situations, right? If you know how to manipulate a conversation in your favor, point out the obvious in a way to where they cannot just, you know, just basically try to act as if they don't know what you're talking about, but you still call them out on it, right? This is why I've talked about a lot of things, like an audio recorder comes in handy, a video recorder, but you see a phone recorder, like a phone, or even just the directional camera, right? You see, as well as you're trying to videotape them and just get your evidence, they're going to try to find a way to manipulate that and basically use that against you. Uh, as far as them using shields, they exploit, as bad as this sounds, they do exploit their own children in order to basically protect themselves as they're carrying these acts out. Keep in mind, this program has led many and many people either into death, incarceration, or institution, and none of these things are good. None of them are. Uh, it's basically nothing more than a huge program for strawmen. They want to create people to use as an excuse for why they need something that technically is what their interest relies upon. They want more gun control, right? So they create basic straw men to basically do fucked up things. But you see, they were provoked into doing those fucked up things due to their environment as well as the people around them being manipulated. And the hardest part about this is that there is no boundaries to this. This could be family members you've known for years, but they just turn against you within the blink of an eye. This could be acquaintances, friends, highest, friends from the school you used to go to school with, people who you know since you were in diapers, man. It goes that far, and that could really mess with somebody. I think they do that for a psychological effect. I'm not 100% certain, but I've learned not to engage. If I see something like that, I just don't engage into it because I know exactly what it is. It's for psychological effects. And some of you probably have endured some of these things. You've probably seen it happen once or twice to you. They'll send someone who you haven't seen in a decade or so, and this is someone who you've known personally because you've either gone to work with them, or you probably lived with them, or you probably basically hung around with them at some point in your life. But that was so long ago. You wouldn't even expect to basically run into them again, right? I'm not saying that the possibility of running into these people isn't possible. I'm just saying that the probability of them basically being influenced by this program is at least a 90% chance to 10. There's only a 10% chance that they might not even be involved. But at the same time, you know, even if they're not involved, by the time you bump into them, they could very well become involved afterwards. Now, the reason why I'm questioning some parts of religions is because I'm concerned that some of this stuff, and in fact, I'm even certain that some of this stuff may have been altered as an attempt for control, an attempt for fear, to basically, project fear. It's not to say God isn't real. God is real. Jesus is real. But the thing is, we got to be sure that, we're not falling into the trap of worshiping a false idol here. What I mean by this is I'm talking about the false idols such as the New Age Jesus, right? Something like that. Not just that. There's many other things too. There's the fake Jews. There's so many other things as well when you look at this from this perspective. And it's a lot. You see, they pray pretend. And how many, and the thing, the most messed up part about this is how many times have we seen a lot of these situations to where they'll have people in these church. There have even been people who have been gang stalked in the church. At least from what I've heard, there's people who said that they have been gang stalked even in the church. There's literally no end to it. Like, you can't, it's almost to the point where you really can't get away from it. But of course, that's a bold-faced lie. If it's all technology has its faults and its strengths. It's going to have its weaknesses and its strengths. The only way to really deal with the situation is to basically find a way to manipulate those weaknesses to your advantage. Let's say they basically use heat signature technology, right? Well, if you've seen the movie Predator, you remember Arnold Schwarzenegger technically jumped in a pool of mud and the Predator couldn't even see him, right? So if someone was to do a test on that just to see if that's quite accurate, well, there you go. But, of course, this is a problematic situation for people who are implanted because, from what I've been told, a lot of people say that they can just use those implants in order to basically track people. I guess that would basically make a lot of sense if it's basically got Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, anything streaming from it in a way to where it has the capabilities of doing that. But let me tell you something, man. These microchips are getting a lot more advanced. They got injected. They're talking about having injectable microchips now, to where it's automatically in a needle, and you basically once it's going through the skin and into your bloodstream, that's it. You chipped just like that. I've talked a lot about geoengineering before. How I suspect Because from what I've heard and what I've seen, people say that they basically, when they do these dumps, right, these geoengineering dumps out in the sky, that they are technically dumping nanoparticles. And due to, the manipulation and the influence of what they're doing, it technically this stuff has the capabilities to actually reconstruct itself, right? I know this because I've actually found a video of a woman who on YouTube did tests of these things. She did. She took samples from many different areas, from different parts of the state she lived in, and I think she probably either in different parts of the state or just in different states that she did these tests in. And over time, these things just kept growing, man. The growth rate just wouldn't stop. So they inevitably got to the point to where they became visible to the naked eye, like they were no longer a microscopic size anymore. But here's the thing: those particles when they basically dump that stuff out there, that's in the air, that's in the water, and of course, if they're doing that anywhere near the crops, that's in the food. But you know what I think? I would have to suspect that they deliberately spray this stuff on the crops anyway. But of course, you would be thinking, well, why would they do that? Well, it seems like, look at the sheer amount of greed that exists now. The sheer amount of greed that has been controlling people. It seems like both greed, fear, and hate has been one of the key components that the enemy has been using in order to manipulate people and to getting them to do their dirty work, This happens due to several altercations that we deal with in our life, or if you're ever targeted by this program in any way, shape, or form. I think Facebook may have been the worst thing for anybody to use, but of course, if it wasn't Facebook, it was going to be MySpace, right? Any of these social media platforms was probably the worst thing for anybody to use, because I suspect that was exactly what put, that caused a person as an individual to actually stand out. But then again, maybe, there's no telling for how long this stuff is going on. Some people had this stuff in their lives since for quite some time, and they didn't even know about it until like later on, right? So even without social media, there's really no guarantee that we probably wouldn't have been targeted either way, There's been talk about how they go after specific blood types, and they're going to find out about that if you ever visit the doctor. They're going to know automatically what type of blood type you are, just from that alone. As far as things are considered right now, I'd say the enemy's technically desperate, very desperate. Keep in mind, if there's anything that is threatening to the enemy, any way for us to basically fight against this, any sensitive information that would basically really, really make it vulnerable, I suspect there's a massive amount of pushback to try to prevent that information from leaking out, just so people won't know those weaknesses to put a stop to it. As desperate as a lot of us are for this to stop, there's going to be people out there who are just as desperate to basically make sure that the stuff keeps going on. Some of these people probably aren't even fully aware of what they're really doing, and some of them probably most likely are fully aware, because as you know, they do technically, the people who are really in the inner workings of a lot of this corruption, they technically raise their kids to be as the next generation in order to basically carry out all of this mess that's going on. So I guess the bottom line is that technically, morally speaking, we do have a sense of way to sense what, right from wrong, what is good. But from some of the things I've seen, a lot of these injections that they're trying to put out, a lot of these mandates and stuff that they're pushing for, the people who did, who said that they did get these things, said that they don't even, it's like a lack of emotion now. There's been a lot of things that are going on. There's been Bell palsy that's been talked about. There's been other incidences going on. There's even been some really severe sores on people's bodies as a result of this whole thing. But you see, that's the information that they're not going to want people to see. But the biggest scam of all that people are not really paying attention to, a lot of people notice how, and they pointed them out, how some of these tests, I'm not going to say exactly what tests these are, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. How some of these tests have very questionable substances on their ends, right where the cotton is at. And the thing about this is similar to exactly what's been going on with geoengineering. But of course, the same old excuse is what they'll come up with. Oh, it's just vapor. Oh, it's just it's just the same old, same old. It's not no chemicals. They're not poisoning people or anything like that. Of course, they're going to say that. Of course, they're going to lie because they want to be, because they're making money off the lie. They're making money off the deception, and they want to keep making that money off the deception. And that's where greed comes in. Greed has become such a huge problematic thing that it is basically, people are comfortable with profiting off of the suffering of so many others and just not giving a damn about it. So, what do we do in an age like this, to where people are just basically being consumed by greed, jealousy, hate, lust, and all other kinds of stuff? The obvious thing is there is a push. It's pretty obvious that there's a push to try to convert people into something that they don't want to be, something that they don't want nothing to do with, and this all falls into the lines of both deception, false promises, and of course, it's been the same thing since the beginning. They created the problem so that they can push for the solution. They spray the stuff out there in order to get people affected by the stuff. These poisons that they put out there that nobody consented to. And then they come out with a solution for it that basically is probably 9 times worse than what they've already been doing anyway. I think a lot of people understand how, like, it is technically getting, technically this whole thing, that what they're doing, this whole straw man tactic, is to try, it's to cause more inner conflict. It's to cause more order out of chaos, basically. And you've already probably seen it with maskers versus anti-maskers, right? You've seen it yourself. I couldn't even believe the amount of stunts they pulled on me alone, man. They sent, I'm at a Greyhound station. They sent a security guard out there bragging about rules, right? But he's not. You see, I don't support the whole mask thing. But at the same time, they sent. You see how that's going? They sent a security guard to me who isn't wearing a mask, and he's talking about rules. You see how that plays out, right? Of course, I got mine on, but I didn't have, they're not giving you much of a choice. And you see, that's what's concerning about a lot of this stuff. It's like they're trying to enforce, consent for a lot of this stuff. Like, well, you want service, you got to give consent for this. You got to give up that. You got to give up this. And it seems like that's the main preference to a lot of this stuff. They're taking away, they're desperately trying to compromise and take away certain privileges that we once had. And then they're only going to relinquish, give us back those privileges, right? If we basically give consent to their bullshit. But let's be honest and look at this for what this really is. This is conditioning. That's precisely what it is. That is conditioning to get people psychologically used to the idea of having to follow certain guidelines and orders from the damn government. Oh, it's not a law, but it's a rule. It's a rule, right? And if you break the rule, you go. How many people have gone to jail just for breaking a damn rule that is not even written in law? Ridiculous, man. Unbelievably ridiculous. This whole thing is such a massive scam. It should be an eye opener to a lot of people. It should, a while back, things were not like this at all. It used to be, people were independent in a way, and then the government, wanted to have more things to deal with families and stuff. But families were like a tad bit, what's the word for that? Distant from from giving them too much control, because lack of trust, in which we should, that should have been kept. Lack of trust to the government should have been, remain and set in stone, or even in steel, really. Because I mean, look at what's going on now. People basically get in office and they give you false promises. They say they're going to do something, but then they don't deliver actually as soon as they get what they want. People put their faith in individuals who are Freemasons, individuals who, whether it's a man or even a woman, dude, they've taken an oath to lie, man. How can you even, why do people even expect someone who is if it is known that that person's a Mason, it doesn't matter who they are, whether Republican or Democrat, it don't matter. How is it that people sit there and put their faith in someone who already took an oath to lie? What do you think they're doing when they're on TV? What do you think they're doing when they're in these rallies? What do you think they're doing when they even do any of these things through these political campaigns? What do you think they're doing? They've already taken an oath to lie, right? So do you think any shred of truth is going to come from someone? How much shred of truth do people really think that it is going to come from someone who took an oath to lie? Not much at all, by the way. Some people may use the excuse of, the lesser of two evils, but dude, I have no confidence at all in politics. I don't. I believe the whole thing is just psychologically operated and psychologically controlled from the start. Not many people want to own up to that idea. Not many people want to own up to the idea that a lot of this stuff is just controlled. They're so stuck on a thought. No, they would never do that. And then it's not that no, they would never do that. It's why would they ever do that, right? What would be the reason for them to do such a thing? That's the kind of mindset people need to have. So they at least start questioning things. Why would they do something like that, right? But that isn't the kind of mindset that most people do have, or at least not enough. You could basically talk about a lot of the things you've been through, how you have random people doing very various acts of repetitious nature. How you have either a woman or a man, or it could be multiple of the two genders, and they just so happen to be all in the same, wearing the same colors, and they keep showing up in your eyesight with the same colors. Is it normal for like a total of 14 colored cars of the same color to really pass by in an area on the same day within an hour? Is that normal? Or is it just that a lot of people basically, have and don't get me wrong, maybe there's an event going on. Maybe there's an event where they all had the same color vehicle. But let's be, realistic here, right? How often is that really going to be the case? How often is it that people are just going to continue to just dismiss stuff and not really question anything? Let me tell you what the reality of this is. People are afraid to question reality because they have become way too used to it. People have become way too accustomed and way too used to the lifestyle that they live right now. But you see, even that is an act of conditioning. People have been conditioned to live a life that they are basically mentally controlled into thinking that is comfortable. And you see, that's exactly what the enemy wants. It wants you lazy. It wants you not being able to do anything. It wants you not being able to basically get out there and see all of the bullshit that they have been doing behind closed doors. Why do you think they wanted people indoors all this time when they basically wanted that shutdown? Weren't people out there working on towers and stuff? Because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people did get recorded doing that, putting up a lot of these towers, and you see that's just the biggest thing. They didn't want people seeing this. They didn't want people seeing that things were being, basically constructed, installed, changed, altered. And a lot of people talked about what they may have done to the schools, and then you still have people sending their kids to the schools, but you got all these warnings. But the thing is, man, people really aren't really thinking like they should. It's been years after years of people warning about a lot of stuff, but some other people just dismiss it. If you got a problematic situation to where you've got a large amount of people complaining about the exact same thing, and it's a constant thing, and then you have people basically just trying to dismiss the situation. No, don't listen to that person. They're just mentally ill. They just don't know what they're talking about. They just need help. But how many times have we seen corruption in these situations? This corruption with the people who you're supposed to basically look for to help, but they're not necessarily you see where this is going, right? The very fact that people just dismiss this is almost as if like they're convinced that people in these authoritative positions can't do no wrong. And that is a huge problem. Because yes, they can do wrong because they're just as human as you and me. They're not above telling a lie. They're not above, fabricating stuff. There's been plenty of times where cops have fabricated and lied, even when they were even in the middle of court. There's even been times where cops have even planted evidence, falsified evidence, just to basically screw over somebody. But why would a police officer do that, right? Why would they plant evidence? Why would they do that? Why? Why would someone do something like that who's supposed to uphold the law and protect the citizens and, be a public servant, right? Why would someone in that position do that? Well, let me tell you something. What if the criminals replaced the officers who actually really did want to do good by their fellow citizens, right? What if they replace that in a way to where they do put people in jail, but it's just the front, it's just a cover, just to cover up all the shady shit that they do on the side. And if it ever gets to the point to where a police officer gets investigated, well, guess what happens? The people who are a part of the same department are the ones to investigate that officer. The same officers who are probably buddy with that cop. Yeah, those are the ones. Yeah, nobody finds that shit suspicious. Nobody finds that to be problematic at all. Really? I'll tell you one thing, if this is much different, this wouldn't be the case. If they had... But, because of it being so corrupt in the way that it is, some of these police officers are already compromised based off of communism already. You can believe that or not if you want. It's entirely up to you. But that's just the truth. You see, I suspect America a long time ago couldn't be defeated, just from attacks from the outside. So whatever the enemy must have thought must have been, they can't attack America from the outside. Why not attack it from within, right? And do it through corruption, bribery, blackmail. Every known trick in the book. Forcing people under a submission to do the wrong thing. And I know that's nothing new. I've seen that with my family, and I've seen that with former employee, work co-workers, basically. I suspect a lot of us had to deal with this some way or another. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna have to really try to figure something out. I don't know if I'm just gonna basically make a GoFundMe or not. I don't know. I might not. I'm not really guaranteeing anything, but I suspect the same thing that's happened to me has got to be happening to someone else as well. Because it just seems like the amount of level that they're, the extent that they're going towards seems very, very desperate. I'm gonna pray for everybody out there. I pray that I hope you all do the same for me as well. Stay safe, stay strong out there.